Paul, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
I mean, following on from having just talked about the benefits of combining community action plans and local place plans, do you think there's any reasons why communities might prefer actually to develop a community action plan which is not eligible for registration as a local place plan?
Yeah, I
And
mean, yeah, sorry, go on.
well, I was just going to add, I mean, if that's the case, how might a community action plan be used to influence, for example, statutory service provision in practice? And do you know any places where that's working well?
Yeah. Well, I guess that for communities who go down the community action plan route, they're kind of responding to that opportunity that's been around there for quite a wee while. Some communities might decide that they don't that there is no spatial element. Within their priorities at the moment. So the why put extra resource and time into developing a local place plan and all the energy that would take. Some communities might decide that they'll go down the route of an asset transfer or a community buyout, rather than down the route of a local place plan. And that's been quite long established. We've seen in areas like Langham, where they have taken over, I think it's the biggest moorland buyout, in the UK, where they've taken on a vast piece of land as a result of a community buyout. We've seen in Dalmellington, community asset of the community centre. We see lots of examples of community centres being taken over by communities that they're not going down the local place plan route, but they're going down the asset transfer route, which is speaking to the local authority or whoever the owner is, and asking, could this be transferred into community hands? And there are lots of options round about complete ownership or partial ownership of the actual building, or a service level agreement to keep those up to date. So right now we're in a really good position where communities have options, and they can think about what is the best option for them at that time. And that's not to rule out a local place plan at some point in the future, but it may not just fit in with what they want to do just now. Anybody else get any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I've seen on the ground what you're saying, Paul, that the amount of extra effort that there is in sort of making sure that it fits the requirements for a local place plan. It does require a bit more effort. So it's about, I think, asking that question, does your community action plan have any spatial elements? And actually when you get to have that conversation with the group, quite often they do see, actually, yeah, we do want to go with this final push, but it's not, if there wasn't any spatial elements, then maybe it wouldn't be worth their while. But quite often I think they do, there is at least something which could be mapped out. I think one thing in particular that I've come across is that invite in a local place plan to register, to identify a land or asset which is of local significance to the area, so the community values. So even if they didn't have any plans to change anything about it, there might be one green space in the middle of their village, and they wanted to say, this is important to us, we definitely don't want any development there, sort of thing. And if there wasn't already planning, you obviously can't lose a local place plan to change a planning decision which has already been made. But if you're thinking about influencing the local development plan going forwards, then that can be of value. And I think because a local place plan can form a material consideration in an individual planning application, it has that ability as well, not just developing the local development plan, but actually as a planning application comes up, if you've already got your local place plan registered and it covers a particular building or piece of land, then it can, it can be part of that consideration process. So I think although I totally agree, if there isn't any spatial element, it's perhaps worth looking at other routes. But I find quite often when you get a community group to think it through, there's usually something. And as we discussed in the last question, it's a route for getting it registered and getting it on the desks of the local authority. So it has value in other ways. But yeah, what about you, Nick? Have you got any other thoughts on that one?
Not particularly, except just to completely agree with what you both said. That's exactly my experience too. Yeah.
It has come up twice now where we talk about the difference of the way a local place plan looks. Is it worth just highlighting what some of those kind of key points are? So you've got your community action plan, and it's got elements of what we want to do with youth. It's got a energy scheme development. It's got the potential of running holiday programs over the summer months, and let's say there is a piece of land in the community. What does that look like when you pull that out and develop that for a local place plan?
Well, I guess a good example might be Loch Alsh, where a community action plan was done during COVID, and it's got a really nice way of expressing the community's aspirations for the area, which covers a large number of villages, and it talks about improving the life of people in Loch Alsh from the cradle to the grave. And then the plan itself talks about all the different aspects of people's life that need to be improved to enable that to happen, such as childcare or things for kids or things for older people. So it's a really nice way of framing it. So when the local place plan was done to complement the community action plan, it really just took the community action plan, took that cradle to the grave view, and to use that phrase again I used earlier on, looked at how that would land on the ground. And in practical terms, that meant things like, how do we make more use of the community hubs or the community centres? How do we make sure there's enough choice of housing and supply of housing for young people to stay in the area or for working people to move there? So things like that. Things like footpath networks as well, and where they might be, so folk could get out for a walk rather than just be straight onto a main road. So it took the cradle to the grave notion and took those ideas and mapped them on the ground. But the community action plan didn't have a map in, whereas the local place plan is all maps. So it's completely expressed through a series of maps which have annotations on them, and there's very little text. So I think it's quite a neat example of the two complementing each other.
And I think an alternative approach that I've seen as well, because I've been reviewing some local place plans from around Scotland to inform what's happening down on the borders, is it's basically pretty much a community action plan, but anything which is to do with spatial planning it's just got a map, and it's just got each of the things that are referred to that have any implications on the ground in terms of land and buildings are just mapped. And for registration, the mapping requirements is just that you have a boundary map of the area covered, and then map or maps indicating any proposals for development or use of land and buildings. So it's pretty easy to convert it and just pop a couple of maps in there in terms of the mapping requirements, but obviously we'll discuss later there are some other requirements as well.
But on the whole, we're expecting planners to be looking positively at the presentation of these local place plans because they've been asked for, the opportunity's been given out there, and there may be wee anomalies in there that the planners can get back with. So I'm hoping that we'll see it be a kind of a collegial sort of a process where it's not onerous. It's not it has to be done in this particular way, or you haven't included X, Y, or Z. I hope there's going to be I hope it will and has been a supportive process for communities.